Attendees are in listen-only mode.
And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this presentation. This is actually session 10 of our 12-session training for the PixelPoint system. My name is Scott Dunlop. Leslie, can you just give me a confirmation that everyone can see my screen and can hear me fine?
Yes, we're all good.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so for today's presentation, what we're going to be covering is, again, we're into some of the heavier topics. The last one we covered was inventory. And today we're going to get into reporting, all the different forms of reporting that you can do with the PixelPoint system. And time permitting, maybe we'll even get a chance to get in some web to go after this as well. So that being said, let's get started. First of all, if you want to generate any reports, okay, so I've shown you briefly there's one area within the front end where you can get some basic reports, and that is within Manager, the Manager function menu, and then within their sales functions, and you got some front-end reports in there just for managers to kind of keep an eye on what's going on. Also within the system, you have cash-out reports, and you have end-of-day reports as well that can be generated. And along with that, there is also a bit of reporting that's available within the back office in the form of Alert Manager. And Alert Manager, I missed it, is right here at the bottom of the general setup screen you'll see within here. And what this will do is just send off a brief message, either by text message or email or just a bulletin on the system indicating whatever condition has been met, such as your sales are over this amount or under that amount, or tips or voids or whatever. But what we're going to be covering, covering now is the conventional reporting of the system, and we have a couple of tools that are available for that. The first one we're going to take a look at is called Dataminer. Now, Dataminer is three-dimensional reporting. Basically, it's a data mining tool that allows you to really crunch your numbers within the system. And this is the first thing we're going to look at within here. So I'm within the General Setup menu, Dataminer Client. Now, this is a very large system to load up, and depending on the situation, how much data you're working with, it can take a little bit of time for some of this information to generate itself. But let's just see if I got it here somewhere. Oh. All right, there we go. I must have missed on it. Okay, so anyway, when you first install PixelPoint at the very beginning, just kind of going right back to like even before day one, when you're installing the system, part of the installation process on the server will be a whole separate installation for Dataminer. You have the choice, the option of either installing it or not installing it. And in my system, I have installed it in here. Now, the Dataminer system has a variety of ways of presenting reports as well. This allows you to really manipulate the data and come up with some really interesting variations on whatever it is you've come up with. Now, in here, for example, let's just take a look at, well, first of all, what we have up on the screen. First of all, across the top, I've got pull-down menus, as you do with any system here. And then underneath that, I've got a number of different tabs. Now, these tabs show as follows here. We have System, which shows actually a system tree of all the different categories of reports that you can generate. Going down any one of these titles, if you click on it, then the information over on the right-hand side will change. All of these are report templates. They're not the actual reports. They're the templates for that report. And when you run a template, then you're actually executing a whole fresh report at that time. We'll come back to this in just a moment. The next thing over is messages. So if there's any kind of messages in terms of what's been done on the system, any kind of problems with it and so on, then the system will come through and generate some information for you here, just giving ideas in terms of what's happening with the system. Also, we have schedules in here as well. You can actually schedule your reports to run automatically on the system. You'll find that as we get into it, it's a very automated system if you wish to set it up as such. And that being said, all of these schedules will be presented within here. You can take a look at them, and from there you can make modifications or even removal of some of these scheduled reports as well. And then finally we have My View, and within My View I haven't set this up. But within here what you can do is actually take some standard reports that you would want management to see on a regular basis. And it's kind of like a dashboard type application where you can actually populate these areas. And in this particular one I've got 4 sections here, but you can have 5 or 6 or 8 or whatever that will present all of these reports. What they'll do is they'll run on their own schedule, and they'll be sitting there in their presentable format ready for you to just take a quick look at them at any given time. You just come into the My View, and this is on a per user basis as well. And within here, you can have the reports displayed on this. We also have a refresh button for this. We also have the ability to sync it with a separate server. Okay, one of the things you can do with Dataminer, for example, is that you can run one Dataminer but link into in different servers on different stores, for example, if you can tie into those locations. And from there, it will extract reports from those given locations. And also, we have print as well. All right, and coming back to system then. So on here, let's just take a look at what we have. First of all, you have the tree down the left-hand side, as I had mentioned, with all the different categories as well. In the event that you wish to create some new categories, then just right-click and click on New. You'll see within here, I can actually create a new folder. I can call it Scott's Reports, for example. And then within there, I can populate it with any reports that I would want specifically to me, and that would show up within this tree as well. So you can create additional ones. You'll see within here, My View, for example, I've got some additional ones you can create within here. Within sub-reports, we have some more in here as well. Now, on this, if I was to select, for example, I'm just going to go with a safe one for the moment here. We're going to start it with listings. Listings is basically a list of all of the data that's been programmed into the system. And so on this, if I want to say, for example, I want to list all of my employees. So I click on List Employees. Now, to run the report, just double-click, and it comes up with this window here. Now this window, if there is any kind of information that is either mandatory or optional in terms of maybe a date range, for example, or choosing of maybe a group of people or items or anything like that, then this window will come up and it will ask you for this type of stuff. For anything within listings, typically you're not going to see really anything within here. For anything that's maybe sales related or operationally related, then you will probably come up with something like asking for a date range. We'll take a look at that shortly. So with all this information in here, we just select on Run. Now this window comes up, and what it's doing right now is compiling all the information, not only for the basic report that's going to be presented, but all of the sub-information that is buried down within there as well. And I can dig down into this later on. And then we're presented with the report. Now, with the report up on the screen, you'll see in this one, it doesn't really matter in terms of the content here. I've got a list of reports of employees, and then here's all the information that shows up within here. But what we're going to do is just focus on this information up at the top here. Now, the first thing we're on here is this tab called Report View. So basically, whenever you generate a report within Dataminer, it comes up with a nice crystal-looking report or report viewer type report in here. And this is what most restaurateurs prefer to go with, because within it, they can look at it, they can understand it, it's all nice and laid out and so on like that. And then from here, they can print it off. Within here, you'll see, for example, we've got icons for printing and for zooming in and all kinds of things like that. You can change around all this information. You can skip onto other pages and so on. Pretty basic operational stuff here. Now, within this, if I want to take a different look at this information, then I can go over to some of these other tabs. Now, the first one I have here is Graph. If I select on Graph, what it's going to do is take the primary information that showed up within here, which was basically the departments, management staff, and restaurant staff, and break it off into a nice little bar graph. As you can see within here, you can choose from other types of graphs as well. Now, this is based on the primary one here of pay rate. So this is departments by pay rate. If I want, I can select on this drop-down box, and if there's additional information that may be available within here, I can choose on this, and the information in here will change automatically. This is also pulled based on excuse me, the primary grouping that you're using for this. We're going to come back to this later on, maybe not within this particular report, but we will as I get deeper into this, because you're going to see how you can change around the information that is graphed on this as well. Now, coming back to Report View again, you'll see we got all of our nice formatted information here, and I also have Select View by first name. And so basically all the information here is sorted by first name. If I select on this, in this particular report, I can also change around to some other different form of order for this. In this case, by last name. If I select on this, it regenerates the report, and it's sorted based on the person's last name as opposed to their first name. Okay, so things like that you can change around within here. All right, now coming back, actually let's go over here to the right where we have properties for a moment. Now properties is kind of technical, like a technical area for this. What you have within properties is basically some of the background information behind this report, so that if you're ever dialing into a customer site, you're taking a look at a report that may not be looking right or whatever the case, then you may want to go into properties and take a look at some of the things in here. First of all, report parameters. If there was anything in here stipulated in terms of like a date range, for example, or some kind of filtering of information, I only want the people with brown colored hair or something like that, then if any of that information was stipulated within here, then you would see this within report parameters, and you can expand or contract on any of these displays. The next one up above that is default mapping. This is the mapping of your data. You'll see within here it gets kind of a little technical in the sense that what you're working with here is database tables and individual fields as well. As far as the default mapping and the Information Explorer over on the right-hand side, this is kind of really techie type stuff, and you probably won't have to really worry with any of this stuff here. What you would be looking at is report parameters, and possibly, if you're not too familiar with the report, also job notes as well. In job notes, you can select on this. They will give you a description as far as what this particular report does. All right, coming over to the left now. All right, I'm going to come back to report view for a moment. Okay, so here is our listing of our employees. Now, what I'm going to do is select on Dataminer. Now, within Dataminer, this kind of takes your report and presents it kind of like a spreadsheet type application where I've got rows and columns and cells with all kinds of information. However, the way this works is that it's taking your report and presenting it in a very basic format. This is the high-end format right here, where I've got, for example, my two departments, management and restaurant staff, as you saw within the graph. And then from here, what information is presented? Well, I've got the home phone numbers, their hiring date, and their pay rate as well. Now, on this, you'll see within each one of these columns, I've got information that says FX max, and FX average. Okay, so within here, this gives you an idea in terms of what this information in each one of these respective columns represents. Maximum being a maximum level, or an average being an average calculation, that kind of thing. Now, the reason why they show up as such is because I am really looking at grouped information here. And if I want to break this down further, let's say, for example, I'm looking at this thing. All right, what do I have for restaurant staff? I can come down to this, and you'll see I've got a little plus sign on here. And if I select on plus sign, what I've just done now is I've mined down into the data on this report. Okay, here's the basic report right here. Management, there's your pay rate. Restaurant staff, there's your pay rate. By expanding on this now, I'm looking at this report with a little more depth. What is the information that made up this particular field? In this case, I chose restaurant staff. And so in here now, I can look at the individual job positions that comprise the Department of Restaurant Staff, being cashiers, clock out, waitstaff managers, and normal. And along with any of this information, the related information across here in terms of things like phone numbers, hiring dates, and pay rates as well. Now within this, I see, for example, I've got waitstaff manager and I've got a phone number in here. Whose phone number is that? Well, I don't know, but if I expand on this, I can now take a look at the information that shows up in there. So who is my waitstaff managers? It's Frank and John and Randy and all these other people as well. So I have a total of 6 employees. Okay, there's the full name field right there. The full name of all the individuals who comprise of the job position of waitstaff manager within the Department of Restaurant Staff. And so you'll see within here now it breaks it down to very specific information this way. And you can do this on any one of these columns as well. Okay, so that's how you go about mining down into the data this way. Now, along with this, is there anything else I can do with it? Oh, heck yes. First of all, within this, if I want to change, let's say, the order of the information that shows up here. Right now it's showing by department and job position, full name, and so on. But let's say, for example, I want to sort by pay rate in ascending order. Then I just select on the field right below at the bottom here where it says pay rate. And you'll see here now everything is sorted in ascending order by the rate of pay. So Janet Jameson, for example, is making $4. Kelly is $4. Now, the reason why it's a little broken up here is because it's grouped by each one of these different areas. That's why. But what you can do within this as well is you can just toggle back and forth between ascending and descending order. And I can actually do this on any one of these columns. So any column of information that shows up within here, the system can sort it very quickly and very easily by just clicking on the blank field below for ascending or descending order of the information. Now, along with this as well, since I'm over on this particular column here, let's say, for example, I'm going to just right-click on this blank field here. You'll see I come up with all kinds of information here. So we have things such as selection information. I can also do things in terms of compromising a layout on this and changing the layout a little bit. Columns, I can add or remove columns depending on the nature of the report. So for example, if let's say hiring date is not important to me, or actually I'll take a phone number because there's not much information in there. So I'll take that and I'll just uncheck it. So phone number is now out of the picture altogether. Bookmarks. If you're messing around with the way the information is displayed, and I think, you know what, this looks really good, I need to do some other changes, but I like it where it is right now, then you can actually create a bookmark in the system. And what will happen is that as you go about and changing columns and so on, and you want to revert back to that one display, then you can select on Add Bookmark, and I'll show you later on where you can refer to that bookmark, and boom, your display is back to the way it was when you selected Add Bookmark. Also, we have things as far as quick print, print custom, expand, and contract all, and so on. These functions down here are also available over the right-hand side for printing and expanding and contracting all the information as well, and export to Excel spreadsheet as well. The selection info, what does it do? Well, if I grabbed a chunk of information like this, then I can actually right-click and take a look at selection info. And what it will do here is actually take that information that I highlighted and do all kinds of calculation on it in terms of the width and height of all the area that I chose. And then from this, give me things such as the maximum and minimum value, the count, number of cells, for example, the average, and the sum of all of that information. And it will do this on any selection I do. So anything like that, or I can actually expand across a couple of things and then just take a look at the selection info that way. And it will do its best to figure out the values on those. You'll see within here I'm kind of combining numeric values along with dates as well. So it's a little messed up, but you get the idea of what it does. And so that's what you can do within that blank cell there. Now, right above it, we also have max, and above that we have the hiring date. And either one of these, if I right-click on either one of them, I'll come up with this slightly different menu that shows up here now. And you'll see within this I have things such as value, row ranking, the column ranking, percent of row or column, all kinds of things like this. And so what you can do is actually add in additional fields within here as well. So just on the fly, I've taken the hiring date and I've added in a subfield of column ranking. And again, I can sort in ascending or descending order for each one of these. The same applies to any one of these. Okay, so that's how you go about adding in additional information as well. It really allows you to mess around, manipulate the information, come up with a lot more detailed information that way. All right, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to jump out of this report because it is just a basic, oh, I jumped out of the thing. I'm having a little problem here. And get back into Dataminer. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to generate a sales report. So we come into sales, and in here I've got product. Okay, so I'm going to do a product sales report. So when I double click on it, the first thing that comes up is this date field here. And it's showing required information. So on this, I have to identify within here what is the beginning and end date for my sales data. Now, bear in mind, I have not run an end of day since we started this course, so I'm going to go back right to November 1st, and I'll bring it right up to current date on this. Now, notice that it's not until I actually select this that the whole bar turns kind of like a bluish green, meaning that, okay, I now have full information required on here. Don't go with just don't assume that the dates that show up within here, because it will default to the current calendar date. Don't assume that it's going to actually apply with those. If you try to run it, it'll say, no, you got to set these parameters. But here now I've actually set those up. and the report is ready to run. Before I run it, I want to take a look at a couple of other things. First of all, we've got optional. So within this particular report, I can put in additional filters in here as well. For example, I can exclude optional products. I can filter down to specific report categories, for example. See, if I don't set any of this information, then it's going to mine down right to the very bottom of whatever the report is designed for. In a larger live system, you might be wary of this, yeah, all right, but for what I'm doing within here, because I just have a sample database and sample thing, I'm not really working with live data, so it's not that critical that I actually have all these items chosen. And before I continue on, I want to show you one more thing. Over on the right-hand side, I've got these two little FX boxes. By selecting on these, you can actually set up a dynamic date range so that whenever you run the report, it will say from this date to this date automatically every time. And in here, you can choose things, for example, beginning of or end of. Okay, I'll say the beginning of, and then I can say within here, for example, the current day or week or month or quarter or year, and then from there I can backdate it. So let's say day, and then within this, -7. So this way, if I selected on this, then that means the start date of this will always be current date -7 days. So it will always be a week's report. And the same with this one as well, end of, and I can say like day 0 or something like that, being current day, for example. All right, I'm just going to cancel on this one as well. Oh, disable for you. There we go. And I'm just going to go with the date range that I lost. There we go. Of November to December. So within here now, it's running through the system. It's calculating the information. If it is going to take a while, you've got a button that says Run in Background. Select on that, and it'll just calculate this in the background. And then whenever it's ready, it'll be on the system for you to select. Now within here, you'll see I've got this report up on the screen, and this is my sales by product report. And the grouping for this is by summary group, and then report category, and then the sales of the individual products. Taking a look down below, you'll see I've got all my information here. The summary group of bar, for example, report category of beer. Here's all of my different beer. And then within there, I got things such as my quantity, percent of total, value, and averages, and so on like that. And all kinds of information showing up on multiple pages for this. Now, on this report, if I was to go over to graph, right now it's showing me quantity. Okay, there's the quantity. And is showing me bar and food. Those are the two departments, the summary groups, I should say, that I'm working with on this. Here, I'll just kind of break it off this way. So there I've got my quantity sold for food, quantity sold for bar, and within here my units of measurement. So 88 is the maximum I've done for bar, for example. Now, or 89, I should say. Now on this, if I came over to this field and selected on quantity, you'll see I can break it off to any of the other field values that showed up within there. So for example, by value, being dollar value. And now you'll see within here, there's my value for food, there's my value for bar. Here's your maximum totals on each one of them, 370.7 or $370.70 and 172.17 for these two things here. And you can do it in other formats as well. But that's how you can vary the information in this graph, is based on choosing what particular field of numeric selection you want to go with. Now coming back to the report view as well, so you see there's the different fields and so on. Now here it was sales by product. If I select on this, you'll see within this I've got different groupings of these. So now what I can do, for example, is I can choose on maybe sales by report category. There is my information now presented by report category, by summary group, and so on. And again, coming back to this, then you can generate the report for any of those respective selections as well. Now, properties, the same stuff here. You'll notice that within parameters, I've got my date range selected in there. So in this case, when this particular report was run, this is the type of information that showed up for it. Now, let's go over to Dataminer. Within Dataminer, I'm presented with my information showing my summary groups of bar and food, and along with that, all of the field values that showed up within the basic report. Oh, let's go into the high-end one. There we go. So there's all my different field values there, and coming over to Dataminer, there's that same information. But it is all showing at the high level of here's what your totals are for bar and the totals for food, and that is by summary group. So within here, if I want to break down my information further, just expand on either one of them, and you'll see now it comes down to the next level. So I've mined down now to the information by report category, and there's all my numbers within here. If I want to break it down further, let's say for example for beer, then I can select on beer, and it breaks it down further, right? What is the numbers that made up 62 for beer? Well, here's all the numbers right here. And so in this I've got my Coronas and my eggs. I guess I got eggs in there as well, and amongst other things as well. So there's all my quantities and the values for each one of them as well. Now I've gone here first of all by summary group, broke it down report category, and now down to the product level. And in this particular report I can even break it down further by the product ID code. Now this is the reference number that shows up within product setup, and so it can break it off to individual ones like that as well. Now, of course, on any of these as well, if I wanted to sort in ascending or descending order on any one of them, just select on that blank field to do that. Yeah, and you can also use any of the information I showed within here. Now, coming up to the one above that, if I do a right click, then I can also add in additional subcolumns as well for any things in terms of comparisons and whatever it happens to be on these different things. All right. Now, some other things you can do with this as well. First of all, if I come over to the left-hand side, you'll see this little icon that shows up next to summary group being the primary group for this. Now, if I select on this little thing, it says here, hide pivot panels. Now, if I select on this, what it will do is unhide the pivot panels and basically put me into whole freestyle mode for my reports. So I'm going to select on this and take a look at this. I have all of these new tabs that have just shown up in here now pertaining to this report. And in here, they are summary group, report category, product name, and product ID, which is all these columns right here. And on this now, I can actually change around the order of information as it comes up. Let's say, for example, I didn't want it by summary group and then report category, but I want it by report category and then summary group. So I can break it down. I just click on summary group and just drag it down. And I can over drag it there. There we go. So it's now sorted by report category and then by product. Okay, I can bring that down. I'll get my stuff figured out here. Summary group, report category, and just bring that up or bring that down. There we go. So now it's sorted by report category, then by summary group, and then by product. Okay. Or as you can see as I'm flipping around with these different things, you can change the orders of these entirely. So it allows you to change around the grouping of these things. So I may want something by course and then seat and then product and then transaction number or something like that, depending on the nature of the report. And you can totally change around the orders of these things. Now, along with this as well, I have this blank bar across the top here. And what I can do is actually populate this with some information. If I select on, let's say, summary group, for example, and drag this up to this bar, what I've done now is I've actually just pivoted everything into kind of a horizontal layout. You'll see within here now I've got summary group of bar, and just kind of scrolling across, there's all my information. There's the food, summary group, and all the information across there. And I can break it down further again by report category. So now across the top I've got bar, and then beer, and then next to that I've got cocktails, and so on. So what I've done is I've now taken all my information, shifted across this way, which has expanded all of my information and presented it in a whole different format. And then the primary grouping down the left-hand side is product. Okay, so summary group and report category across the top, and then product down along the bottom. And you can do that for any one of these. Product ID. If this information is not important to me within my reports, I don't need it really in there, then I can take it out altogether. You have this blank bar up here, and just dragging this up like that, it is now sitting there kind of out of the way of the report. It's still part of the report template, and you can drag it down and put it in, but in this particular case, I don't want it in there. So now I'm showing all my information down the left-hand side by product, and then across the top by summary group, and then report category. And it's stretching it all out this way. So lots of variations on that. And again, you know, you can add in additional columns. You can sort in ascending or descending order on any one of these things as well. So lots of variations on that. Along with this as well, some other things you can do. You'll see within Summary Settings, I clicked on the down arrow for that, and it shows me all of the different rows and columns or columns in this case, that I'm working with here. And if there's any of these I want to take out, then I can just knock them out of the equation. I can also expand on it, and you'll see the forms of information that show up within here, which is all this stuff. And so on this, I have, for example, like sum being a sum value of what I've accumulated on that. Or I can also add in counts and averages, minimum, maximum, variances, and so on like that. Skewing from the median, also kurtosis, which is Cartesian mathematics. It can get pretty intense. I have no idea what kurtosis really is, but we can do it. And so anyway, within any one of these things, I can add in all of these additional calculations into the system as well, if they're pertinent. Along with this, we also have this little box right here, save the current pivot state as well. So this is where you actually have your bookmarks. So if you did create a bookmark, it would show up within this list. Yeah, since I don't have one, it's offering me to save one at this point. So if I like the way it's displayed right now, but I want to do some more changes and messing around with it and so on, then I can actually go into this, save this or bookmark this current display, and then go and change things around. And I can always come back to that, in which case then I'll have this little drop-down box here. I can select on it and say, this is Scott's first display or something like that, and I can refer back to that to come back to that given display. So that gives you a good idea in terms of what you can do in terms of the level of data mining and manipulation and so on. There is some additional stuff as well. I don't want to get too deep into it because we only got 2-hour presentation here, but within all of this, refer to the manual for this. There's also a Dataminer manual as well that was created for this, and it should be available on the MyPower website that you can download as well. There's a lot more detail that's available for this. Now, finally, we also have simple view as well. If I have my conventional view that shows up on this, let's come back to this again, then you can actually take a look at the information that shows up actually within Dataminer. However you lay it out with Dataminer, it will present it this way in simple view. And then from here, what you can do is print it off this way. This is a lot more easier for people to understand and work with as opposed to working with the Dataminer. This is more of the tool construction, make it look this way type function. And then when you're done with that, simple view is just showing you the finished result of it. Okay, so that gives you an idea in terms of what you can do on any given report. Now, within here, I'm back on the System tab for a moment here. I'm not going to close this one off yet. And you'll see down here I've got a couple of reports, product and list employees. So within this presentation, I've shown you two reports. I've generated those reports, and they've shown up within here. And on this, you can actually go in and I can rerun these reports. Just double-click on it. Boom, there's the report that I just took a look at. And when you're done, you can just close it off. Actually, I would close off, but I think oh, there it is. There. I just have a toolbar that's in a way that you can't see. Okay, and that brings that up. If I want to have these things deleted and so on, what you can do is just right-click on that report, and within here you can do all kinds of things in terms of like flagging, with it, like color coding these things in terms of like management reports, employee reports, or whatever. You can delete all or some of the reports as well. I'll just say delete this report, and it's gone, so it's off that list. But they can be retained on here, and you can dictate on it in terms of how long you want this report to be retained on the system as well. That's all part of the setup within here. Now, I'm a little short on time here, so I'm not going to get too much deeper into that right now. What I am going to show you here really quickly, though, because this is important stuff, is how to go about manipulating the reports so that you can do some forms of customization on them. So I'm going to actually refer back to that same one we just took a look at because we're kind of familiar with it right now, which was the product report. And what I'm going to do, rather than double-click on it, I'm going to right-click. Now, we have a couple of things here. First of all, we have Run, but we also have Edit as well. And Edit, I'm going to show you how to go about setting this up so that you can manipulate the way of information shows up within it. So within Edit Advanced, we come into this, and the first thing we've got here is this tab called Run. So when you first run the report, what information do you want to show up within this? So in here, we've got things such as enter the date range. And again, you can put in the dynamic date range for that, save it. So every time you run this report, it will take maybe the past week or a month or whatever it happens to be. We also have all of these different optional ones in here. If I always want it to come up so that I want to filter out the food report category, for example, then you can do things like that. Select on whatever happens to be for that given bit of information, and you can filter it down that way. Coming over to the next one, we have schedules. One of the things you can do is you can schedule this report to run automatically. So within this, I'm just going to give you an idea of what we can do. Add scheduled task, and so on this, I'm going to select this. Create a new schedule or update the existing one, because I already have this thing automatically running every so often. But on this, I'll say create a new schedule. Right, this wizard helps you to schedule a task. And so in here, we select on it. And in here, now what you can do is actually choose the frequency. So just schedule for a one-time shot, or do it on a weekly basis, monthly, and frequently being an interval of time. So if I choose weekly, for example, then coming over to the next one, I can choose which days of the week I want this to run and at what time. If I went over to something like monthly, for example, then you can choose an exact date, with calendar date, for example. The next thing over is batch. Now, a batch report means that I want to run this report, but when I run this report, it will include this report, and that report. And so when you actually run this, it's actually running a series of different reports. Actually, the master report for back office is one called sales summary. Sales summary is the equivalency of your back office end-of-day report. And sales summary has about 8 or 10 different reports that are all batched together for this, so that when you run this one report, the sales summary report, then it gives you all the things in terms of the employee time clock information, the sales information, discounts and taxes and so on like that, all grouped together, appropriately one after the other within this one batch report. And to do that, you just select on Add, and then from here you come up with a list of all the different categories. Within here, choose the appropriate report that you want, and it will add to that list. Boom, 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 boom. They'll all be in there. The next one over is alerts. Now, an alert is basically when this report is run, alert me of certain conditions. Okay, so on this, I'm going to add an alert. And here, for example, let's say report category. So I'm going to select our report category. Next, the effect type. So in here, an alert will actually filter the information so that you only see whatever it is you wanted in the alert. So if my thing is by report category pertaining to cocktails, for example, then I can have a cocktail report that I'm generating and show me only my cocktails, when the sales are greater than 0 or something like that. Or bold the text, so run the conventional report, but bold this information. Font color or background color, give it to me, but if I got a color printer, then generate it in red or something like that. So whatever it happens to be, I'll actually go with this font color, for example. I'll select on Next, and in here you can choose in terms of red, okay? So print it in red, that kind of thing. And then come on to Next. And then finally within here, what is the condition? So in this case, report category, I can say, if it's greater than 0 or greater than 100 or something like that. You can put in any kind of condition you want, or maybe always is a good one as well, just for the report categories and so on. Test the condition, and when you enter in a value within here, let's say, for example, I'm going to change this around. Make it greater than 99. Okay. So in here, whenever the sale of something is greater than 99, then make sure this is showing in bold. And to test the condition, so if the dollar value was 98, that would show up as a false. If the dollar value was 100, it would show as a true. Okay, this way you can test out your formula. And you can get a lot more in depth than what I just offered here. You're working with Microsoft VB script and Visual Basic script, and so you can put in some pretty detailed scripting as far as these calculations and so on. All right, I'll select on Finished. All right, and there's my alert within here. So whenever this report is run, it'll show up in red, where if report category sales are greater than $99. All right, actions. Within here, when I generate this report, I want it to go through a series of different actions or tasks that it will do for me. So I'm going to select on Add Action. And in here, we have action type. So on this, what do I want it to do? So what you can have here is you can actually schedule a report, and when that report is run, then at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the morning, then I want to print it off my local printer. I want to export it to a spreadsheet file. I want to export it to an email and email it to my manager. I want to copy it to, let's say, Leslie, who's also another user on the system as well, so she can view it. And also I want to delete the report from the Dataminer when it's done, so that I don't have it sitting in the queue there. The auto load is to basically automatically load the report and have it ready so that whenever you jump into Dataminer, boom, it's sitting there ready to go. So there's lots of different tasks that you can assign for it to do, and it's just a matter of selecting on it. The action trigger, okay, being that this report is going to be run, let's say on the scheduler, for example, so that would be a server-generated one. If it's run on the client, that means someone's actually in the Dataminer client, like I'm in right now, and actually generating that report, or never. Pretty self-explanatory there. And then from there, you can create all of these different actions. And so what will happen is that whenever this report is executed, boom, 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 and that's what happens. The next one over is config. Now within configuration, there's all kinds of little detailed information that you can set up within here. Let's just kind of work our way down. First of all, set the default view for this. Okay, you'll see over on the right-hand side, I've got all of these different views that were set up for this. And we did take a look at all of these as well. All right, so there's, for example, the grid view and the graph view that we took a look at, the simple view where you just have the numbers showing up and so on. And then coming down below, the default for that we have is sales by product. You'll see within here it shows up in the green thing. This indicates that this is the report view selection. Any one of these is a report view selection. Now, one thing I want to point out here, if you do change the layout of any of this information in here, and I'll show you on the next tab, how we go about doing that. If you do make any changes to this report and save it as such, then you need to take it off a report view selection within here. The reason being is that all of these here are designed with the expectation that the report is as it was designed. Okay, so here's the template where I've got my quantity, then my dollar value, then whatever else shows up within the thing. And when you change that information around, you change the template. Change the template, these quick view reports do not match up, and you'll come up with an error message. So if you still want the report to be able to generate after you've made some changes to its layout and so like that, then go to something like the simple view or the grid. The grid is the Dataminer view. That would probably be the most practical one to come with. So every time you generate this report, boom, that comes up in the Dataminer view with all these modifications that you've made and so on. But if you leave it in the report view formed like this, then it'll come up with an error message. Coming down below that, auto expand to level. So within here, the default is there is no auto expansion. But in this, it has all my different groupings. So when I run this report, I always want it expanded down to maybe the report category level, so I can see what it is that way, rather than have to expand it myself. Detailed description of what this report is, blah, 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 and that's just helpful when you're trying to differentiate one report from another. Recurring job, only latest job will be kept. So if you select on this, then basically this is something that's set within the scheduler to run maybe every half hour, for example. And on this, do I want to keep every one of those half-hour reports, or do I just want to override with the existing one? If it is a recurring job and you only want the last one kept, then basically it'll remove the whole date stamp thing from the title. And coming down below here, we also have report security as well. I can set security on any given report based on a user or group of users, and along with this as well, I can identify who can view this report and who can edit this report. And this is on a per report basis. So the level of security that's within Dataminer is very extensive here, because I can dictate who can view it, who cannot, who can edit it, and who cannot as well. And that's all done through there. All right, the last one that we have here is design. Now coming over to design, what we're looking at here is the guts of the report itself when we generate it. What actually shows up and what's required within here. First of all, we have rows. You'll see within rows we've got things: summary group, report category, product name, and product ID. Looks a little familiar. Those are the groups, the groupings that show up within your report. And within here, I can add in additional groupings or subtract any of these by selecting on the plus sign. Now in this, I'm presented with a database schema of all of the information pertaining to this given report. In this case, it's a sales-related report, so all the information in here are sales-related database tables. Now, if you are going to do some detailed report manipulation on this, you really have to be familiar with the PixelPoint database itself in terms of the tables and fields and the interaction between them and so on. Because you may find that some of these combinations will not work. You know, show me a report and you're asking that shows sales based on my supplier. Okay, in which case there's no direct collaboration between the guy who delivers pickles to your store and your actual sale of pickles. You know, it's kind of hard to come up with things of that nature where you're saying, well, what is my sales from that supplier on this item and so on. It can get a little hairy. So just kind of be aware in terms of the connection of your information. What I recommend, walk before you run. Don't get too deep. Don't get too deep within this. But if you do need to do anything, for example, that is transaction oriented, then the two main database tables pertaining to sales are these two right here: pause header, pause detail. And within this, you have the individual fields that show up within each one of those database tables. And take a look at this. Each one of them is identified in terms of the type of field that you're looking at as well. So for example, I've got a numeric field, number of customers. There's a number sign there. There's a dollar sign, final total. So that's a currency value there. Coming down a little further, we've got this one with the time clock, open date. Coming down further, we've got an A there for alphanumeric. That's a revenue centers. That's a description that's showing up within here. So all of this information are different fields that show up within that database table. Pause detail gives you the individual items that were ordered within that transaction. So those are the two main ones for that. And again, within here, if there was something that I wanted to include within this, then I can just select on this, and I want to include, all right, where was I here now? Let's say, all right, sale types, for example. So here I got sale type, and there's sale type there. I'm going to add on that, and you'll see now I've got this new grouping of sale type added in here. Product ID, if I want to take that out, then I can just select on the minus sign, boom, it's out of this display. But let's say I want to have this in there, but I may not want to use it all the time, but I want to make it available should I wish to use it. What you can do is actually take that product ID and just move it up to this one called columns. Now columns is actually that blank one, that blank bar that was across the top. So if I want to take something out of the equation but still have it available to drag down if I wanted to, then that's what columns does. And so by doing this now, when I generate this report, it will be by summary group, report category, product name, and then within here sale type. And again, I can change around the order of these as well. And along with that, I have the optional field of product ID. And you can populate this with optional information in here as well by selecting on the plus sign. Coming down below that, we have data. Data is the actual guts of the information, the actual data that shows up within here. And you'll see within this, we've got the quantity, value, average value, and so on. Once again, I can select on the plus sign, and I can add in data information within here as well. Now, along with this, I can right-click and select on Add. What's this? Add a result and Add Calculated. All right, add a result being, what is the final result of this particular field that's showing up. But let's take a look at Add Calculated for a moment. Add Calculated allows you to create your own custom fields. And on here, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give it a name. We'll call it Scott. And on this, what type of calculation is it? So here I've got sum, minimum, maximum, count, average, and so on like that. I'll stick with sum for a moment. And in here, then the result for this. So I want to do a calculation. It'll be an integer calculation. What is it going to be? Then on here, I can choose, first of all, any of these different types of fields. So what type of field do I want? I'll leave it as that. And then on here, server calculation or client calculation, depending on the nature of how it's run. So I can have this show up, if it's on a timely report, but maybe not within a conventional report. Coming over to the next one here, what do I want to do? Well, first of all, let's take, for example, my quantity. So I'm going to add in quantity and maybe value. Okay, and I'm going to come over to next. So I have quantity plus value. And so in here, I can actually have it left as that, or I can say, for example, quantity minus value. And then in here, I can have plus 220. or 250 or something like that, whatever it happens to be. But on this, it'll calculate it to make sure that this is a proper formula expression that you're working with here. And so what it's going to do is take the quantity, subtract the value. Actually, well, no, maybe I'll change that back to a plus again, because that just looks stupid. Quantity plus value, and from there I'm going to add in 250. And so within that, I've got all the information done, and I'll select on Finish. And what I have now here is this new field that's been added into my report called Scott. Now, referring back to the config here for a moment, because I've made this change and I've added in the field Scott, Scott is not included in any of these quick view reports. So you don't want the default to be on this, because as of this point now, it's going to, and I don't have sale type in there as well. So this is going to be invalid. So what you would want to do is set the default, actually probably to grid. I would probably say that one. It says default. Right, so there's the default display there, and it's taken out of there. So when I run this report now, it's going to show up within the Dataminer grid format for that. All right, coming back to this, what else do we have within here? First of all, we've got free and quick columns as well. Now, these are the sub-columns that show up within here. Free is the secondary one, and so on this, if there was some other information I wanted to add it in, I can add that within there. Quick columns, they will automatically show up within here as well, the sub-columns. And in here, all right, I'm just going to choose some stuff here. I have no idea if these will even work. So process time for future orders. No, I don't want to break it off in multiple. All right, so there it is there. You can break it off, for example, if it's a time and date thing, where it's maybe like year, month, day, then you can break it off to individual fields if you need to. And the same with free, I'll go in within here, and I'll add in member, birthday. No, that's a date. Buzzcode. Okay. So I've got some additional optional fields I can have, columns I can have within there as well. Now, coming over to filters over on the left-hand side, you'll see that I've got, for example, things such as the product type, reducing filter, open date, this kind of stuff, and also the optional ones that come in here where I can filter by report category and summary group and so on like that. Within here, if I select on the properties for any one of these things, you can see it can get pretty technical. Now, without getting too technical in this, just a little something we've got within here. First of all, we've got global. Now, the system offers global filtering, and what that means is that when you have multiple users who are using the Dataminer system, let's say, for example, you're a manager, I'm a manager, Leslie's a manager, and within this, I, as Scott the manager, have created a report, made some changes to it, and so on like that. I save it on the system. I can actually filter out so that other managers can view it or other managers cannot view it. This is really great in an enterprise application. This is for the sales people, by the way, when it comes to Dataminer as well, because you can actually have a corporate report that is generated at the corporate office, downloaded at all the locations, and so all of the regional managers will be able to run that same report, but it will only filter based on their specific region. So they can't see another guy's region, for example. So that's what global filtering does. All right, so that gives you an idea in terms of, and that's a really brief idea, in terms of what you can do with all these different things. You'll notice here I've got all and sales. Sales is the sales report. All is all reports. If this was a batch report that had 5 or 6 or 7 different reports in it for the batch report, then I would see all of those sub-reports lined up across here. And I can make changes in any one of these settings on a per sub-report basis. All right, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to save. I'm going to just save it as. So I'll select on this, and within here it says product. I want to just do a different one, so I'll say product Scott. And OK. And so now what I've got is this report, and it's been, here, let's just kind of run it. It's saved as a different one. I recommend doing that, actually, if you are going to modify any reports, so that way you don't blow away the default one. Cannot run without saving save first. Okay, I thought I did. There we go. Oh, okay. There. Okay, run. How about we close that? Where is it? It could be anywhere on this. Oh, no, there it is. Okay, product Scott. There. Run. Now, some of the information may look like garbage because I just made this up as I went, but what I'm looking to show you here is just how some of this shows up. Okay, so first of all, I changed it to show up on the Dataminer view. Okay, if I try to go in within here, I'll come up with the conventional stuff, but if it tried to calculate and then present it in this fashion, then it would just give me some bogus information. Now, along with this, you'll see I've got this field in here called Scott as well, and so it's done some kind of a calculation where it's the quantity plus value plus 100 or 250. So it came up with 251, for example. Okay, so that's how you come up with the custom field for Scott, for example. So this is how I've added in that custom information on that. And along with this as well, in here, if I was to just go into my pivot thing, you'll see I've got buzz code showing up in the top here. I've got product ID stretching across the top as well. And then down the side here, I've got sale type, which I've added in as well. This is the new grouping that I added in. So there's sale type of delivery, dine-in pickup. And then from there, they based on my summary group and report categories and so on like that. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea in terms of what you can do with Dataminer. Now, there's a number of different components that are available for this, kind of required for it to run. The Dataminer system itself, of course, you can run it directly from the back office, no problem with that. But what I recommend is that if you are going to do that, here, I just got some stuff because my system's just giving me problems with it. Okay, down at the bottom, I've got this icon that I actually created within here, and this is something that you would want to actually include within your startup folder. It's this one right here, pixelrepserve.ext. Okay, let's just take a look at it. This is located within the PixelPOS shared folder. Now, in there's a subfolder called Dataminer, and in there you have a number of different folders. And in the one that you're looking for is Report Server. Okay, Report Server is basically the server components that are required to get Dataminer up and running. And within there, there's an exe called pxrepsrv. Now, this is kind of like the background brains or the agent for the Dataminer system, and you want to have this running in the background if you can. The reason being is that the client will actually start it up automatically, but it takes a lot longer to do that, and it can be rather tedious. Whereas if you have this running in the background automatically, then when you kick in the Dataminer, boom, it comes up on the screen. So I recommend having that set up as part of your automatic startup. If you are going to be using Dataminer in the system, just have that within your startup folder for that. All right, the next thing we've got is Report Viewer. Now, what I'm going to do, I know we're just a couple minutes early right now, but I think what we'll do, let's take our 5-minute break now. Okay, I'm roughly 3 minutes to 2. So again, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, then we'll jump into Report Viewer and take a look at what we can do within there. Okay, so get up and stretch and grab yourself a cup of coffee, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, folks, we're back. If you just want to get settled into your seats, give it a couple of seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, so continuing where we left off, we just finished off with Report Viewer. And as you saw, there was a fair bit in there. All right, let's talk about just Report Viewer just for a moment here. You may have heard rumors that Report Viewer, it's on its way out and it's discontinued and whatever. In future releases of PixelPoint, it is possible that Report Viewer, or Dataminer I should say, may be phased out, but it is not right at the moment. It's still used quite actively, and it comes free with the system as well. So it's a secondary reporting tool that's available to you. It can give some superior reporting capability to what most any other system can as well. There's actually a lot of POS systems out there that do offer data mining as well, but it's a third-party interface, whereas PixelPoint's data miner is actually fully integrated, designed by and for PixelPoint. So it works really, really well and tightly with the system as well. It's just that it is a little more overkill than what a lot of places really need, but it is available nonetheless. All right, let's go back into General Setup. And coming down next, we have Report Viewer. Now, Report Viewer is a more conventional reporting system. It's designed as an interface with Crystal Reports. Crystal Reports is a third-party company that specializes in generating reports for different systems. And in here, we interface with Crystal Reports version 11. And along with this, then all of these reports are designed for that. It is backwards compatible to 10 and 9 and maybe even 8 as well. And so that being said, lots of reporting capability. And if you're familiar with Crystal Reports in terms of the system itself, then you can also generate your own Crystal Reports as well for this system. Now, you'll notice that the design is similar to what we just saw within Dataminer as well. Down the left-hand side, I've got the tree of all the different information that's available within here. And off to the right, as you select on any one of these, you've got the corresponding data reports that show up over on the right-hand side. If you want to take a look at a report, just double-click on the report. Again, we come up with the date on it. And within here, I'll just give this a try once again. So my start date will be November 1st, December 4th. I'll select on OK. And then from here, I'm brought up with a report. And on here, depending on the nature of the report and how it's laid out and so on like that, it could be something rather small like this, or a conventional report that looks a lot more normal than this one. If it's also more than one report, then down at the bottom we've got all these different things. Print report, self-explanatory, print the current page. Export, if you select on export, there's lots of exporting capability. You can take in a report and you can send it out in a variety of different formats. Take a look at all that stuff that you can choose from it within there. And along with that, also the destination that you're going to choose it to send it off to. Report groups. By selecting on this, you take your report and break it off into all these little groupings that we have here. And on this, as you can see, we've got this. And if it's a multi-page report, then you can jump down to any given section that would advance you down to that given section as well. Also, we got first page, prior, next, and last page as well. So on this, let's say, for example, I come over to sales products. Okay, so we'll say we're kind of on that particular topic. And in here, I'll do it by category. Okay, so sales by report category. So on here, November 1st, that's fine. So here is our sales, and on this is by report category. And on this particular one, this is a graphic-oriented one as well. And on this, I've got all the information that shows up within here. Now, all of the data that shows up within these reports is cookie cutter. It's all pre-designed, pre-formed, and boom, here it is. And there's not a heck of a lot you can do in terms of changing the content of these reports, unless, of course, you have Crystal Reports, in which case then you can take these and manipulate them that way. Now, in terms of the reports and how can we mess around with them and change them around and so on. All right, let's say, for example, if I came in here, here's my sales products by time sold. Okay, now, I have this report. I want to make some kind of changes to it a little bit. What can I do? I right-click, and I can go into Edit Report. Now, within Edit Report, there's a number of different fields within here that you can do to manipulate how the report acts when you run it. First of all, we have within here, Ask for Date Range. Okay, so when you run it, it's going to bring up that whole window of date range. If you do not want to ask for date range and just assume current period, then you just uncheck that and it will assume current date, and that's the way it is. Coming down below that, the report name, products sold by time, products sold by time. Now here is the actual file itself. It's an RPT file. RPT is a report file indicating that it's for crystal reports. And within here, you can actually change around to any given reports. If newer reports have been created in subsequent versions of PixelPoint, they will be added within here, but not necessarily added automatically to your tree. You may actually have to create new entries in here to get these new reports showing up within here. So don't be surprised if you have more reports that show up within this directory than actually show up within the mini tree over on the left-hand side. Coming down below that, report description. Okay, just a brief thing that shows up here as well for help files and so on. Now coming down below that, we have selection formula and parameters, these two areas here. And within this, you can actually do some manipulation of the data that shows up. You do have to be familiar with SQL programming to kind of get an idea in terms of what type of information to put within there, and also what field components are being used within that report. So just a little disclaimer on that. But that being said, you can put in selection formulas. So I want to show my products sold by time, but only for station number 1. Or stations 1 through 5 or something like that. And as far as the parameters go in this as well, you can put in things like sort by this field or something of that nature. So long as you have the right formulas for this, you can do something like that. You would probably be able to find some of the selection formula information maybe within the MyPar website if you go into the knowledge base and take a look within there. Also try the billboard or the bulletin board section as well, where we have all of our different users worldwide who actually go in there. It's like a forum for all of our PixelPoint people worldwide, all of our resellers and so on. And this allows you to collaborate back and forth with them, and they may have some formulas in there for different reports as well. Coming over to the right-hand side, we have output. Now within output, we have destination. So when I generate this report, where do I want to display? So in here, it says by window, and this is the default setting for all of these. So what will happen is that you'll have a window display showing up on your computer screen, showing you here's the report, and then from there you can export it or print it off. If I want to have the report generated automatically to a printer, then I can just select on printer, identify what printer if I'm on a network, and from there it will just print the report automatically. I also have by file as well. So if I select on file, then what will happen is it'll allow me to export it out to a file, and then down below I've got my criteria for that. You'll see within there, there's all of your things you can choose from. We also have email. So I can email this report to somebody. Now, depending on how you're set up, whether it's a MAPI or whatever it happens to be in terms of your email server capability settings on this, and make sure you do have email server capability for it, then within here, you can actually set it up for email, setting it by email. And you can identify it in terms of the email address that it would be going to. And also, if it's through Microsoft Exchange as well, which is what we use within our office, for example, then you can set up for that and identify what it would be within there. And that's for internal emailing capability. All right, I'll just leave this back on window. All right, so the export file type, as I mentioned within there, if you choose by file, export file name, you can give it a name as to the name of the file that would be generated. Also, it says within here, use end of day in, or use end date, all right, would be the current date of the report, in export file name. So this way, if I'm generating this report and exporting on a continuous basis or more than one, then rather than have them override on each other, then I can select on that, in which case then it'll show, the products sold by time and then current date, and then tomorrow it would be products sold by time and then tomorrow's date on it, and so on. The export directory, the destination, the email address as well, and Microsoft Exchange profile and Exchange folder as well. So if you are working through Exchange, then you can identify how you want it emailed out using those settings as well. So that's how you go about editing a report. Now, along with this as well, you'll see within here in the tree, I've got all these different things showing up within here. And if I did need to add in some kind of criteria, let's say, for example, I come up to reports, and in here I say, I have Leslie, and Leslie is my head chef for the restaurant. And I want some reports specific to her so that when she goes in here and runs this, then she can just quickly and conveniently have these reports made available. We don't she doesn't have to go and hunt around for them every time. Then what you can do is just go into, let's say, Pixel Reports or any of these subcategories if need be, and I'll right-click, and I'll come into New Group. And so in here, I'm going to say Leslie's Reports. So now I have a new folder that's created in here, and there's nothing in it right now, but if I went into any of these reports, let's say sales, for example, products, and sold by time, and I can just do a drag down like that, then what will happen is in Leslie's folder, I now have a copy of that report showing up within here. So I can go to all of the different areas that may be pertinent to Leslie, and I can have them in there like that. And so this way, if she comes in and needs to quickly run these reports, she's got a folder set up with all of the normal ones that she normally runs on this. And if, just to save Leslie some time as well, if she needs all of these different reports, then just right-click and come down to where it says here, Run All Reports. And then from there, all the reports that are in that folder, it will just run those reports. She sets up her date range once, and boom, it just goes through all of them that way. So that gives you an idea in terms of what you can do within here, within the report viewer. The report viewer can be added into front end as well if need be, and you would do that by going into Administrator, POS Function Setup, and within here, then I can add in, let's say, within Manager, for example, I'll come down here and New Function, and you can actually put in Report Viewer within here as well and have it run directly from the front end. Now, Report Viewer can be run as part of the back office, as like I showed you here, but there's also actually a separate one, a relatively recent one that's been added into the system called Report Viewer, and this is a slightly different one that is designed for external use, so you don't have to be within the back office to do this. So here, I'm just going to, first of all, just turn off this thing. Terminate. There we go. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is, first of all, let's just take a look at the chart for this. Okay, within the Pixel POS folder is an exe called reportviewer.exe. And this is not exactly the same as the one we just took a look at. It's slightly different. So in here, you'll notice, first of all, it has its own separate security for this to get in. And so on this, I'll just go in with my manager. Oh, slow it down here. There we go. And then here I'm presented with this. And it's close, but it looks just a little bit different. So on this, again, I have all my different groupings within here. And so if I wanted to, for example, run a sales report, let's just kind of here bring this up. So here's my sales reports. And within here, if I select on this, then I've got all of my different things within here. And you'll notice that nothing shows up on the right-hand side. So basically, it's just designed for a left-hand tree only. And then from here, if I wanted, let's say, report category sales by category, then I can just run this report. And it comes up with a slightly different looking window again. I can identify by a pay period if need be, or within here, November 1st to 4th. And there's my report showing up within here as well. And along with this, we have the same functionality. It's just a slightly different look to it as well. Now within this, we have some other things that show up within here. First of all, group. And so you'll see within here, I've got things such as new groups, edit groups, and so on like this. Let's just try a new group. And so on this, what I'm setting up here is actually a group of users that can access this externally. So in this, I'll say, for example, managers, and security level to edit and delete and so on like that. So in here, I can put in a security level for this. And so now what I've got is this new grouping that's been applied within here, but it's got its own level of security to it. Okay, I just happen to be in this category as it was doing this, so that's why it came up, buried way down here, but you would actually do it way up here. But in this, I now have this whole grouping for this, and the setup for this is the same. It's just a matter of click and drag into that particular group, and then from there you would have all those available within there. Also within this, edit as well. So if I came up to, let's say, listings would be fine, and edit listings. And so within this, I can now apply security level to any one of these. All right, the next one over is report. And so within report, to create a new report, I can select on this. If you have like an RPT file that you created, then you can give it a name and identify as far as the RPT file that you're adding into it. Again, apply security level to it as well. It's a lot nicer. It's got so much more capability in terms of applying security levels. The other one does not have that capability. And also input data as well in terms of the parameters and formulas and so on that you're putting into this, and also the way that you want it to display, window by default. Also take a look at here. We have scheduling capability. So within here, actually I haven't set that up. Okay, but within here you can actually add a schedule to this given report. There is a parameter that you need to add in to the target line to make sure that scheduling is activated on this. I think it's like a space dash F or S or something like that, and then it will allow scheduling capability for it. Also within this, as far as emailing and export capability as well. And then we have tools, and tools basically just tools for the general display of the system, how it's all set up this way. So it's very intuitive in terms of what it can do. Has a lot of nice capability to it, and it can be run as an external exe as well within the system. So that's the external report viewer for that. All right, so that gives you an idea in terms of what you can do in terms of reporting within the PixelPoint system. We have two major systems, being Dataminer, Report Viewer, and then within Report Viewer, we've got two renditions of it. We've got the one which is within the back office, and then we've got the one that's available as a separate exe as well. What I'd like to do now is give you a guided tour of Web2Go. So let's go back into back office and talk about it. Web2Go is web-based ordering. Okay, so basically I have a restaurant and I have a website for my restaurant, and on this I want to allow people to go in, take a look at my menu, and order some stuff as well. So within the administrator pull-down menu, down to here we have Web2Go setup. Now when you're setting up a Web2Go system, how is it done? Well, first of all, you contact your PAR account manager and say, I've got a client, he's got a website, and he wants to add on web-based ordering. Then from there, they will contact the PAR Canada office, who will set this up for you from their end. And there's just a little bit of work that you need to do at your end. Now, in terms of doing the programming and knowing how to manipulate all this stuff, don't worry about it. You do not have to do that. That's not your responsibility. All you have to do is just make sure that at the store level, you've got a web server that's located physically within the restaurant, physically on the POS system. And it will serve as kind of a web-based station, so to speak. And what will happen is that people will log into that web-based station, place their web-based order using a web-based employee. All right, this is how you're kind of fooling PixelPoint system into thinking it's a station with a user, when actually it's all through the internet. And then from there, it will print off in the appropriate printers in terms of the kitchen, the bar, whatever it happens to be, and the order will be prepared and ready to go by the time they have it picked up or delivered. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk you through the programming of this within the back office anyway, so you have some orientation in terms of what components are available in there. And then when I'm done with this, I'm going to actually show you a Web2Go system and a demo system, and we'll take a look at what's available within there. So the first thing we have here within Internet Setup is Website Setup. So in here, the first thing you would select on is System Uses Web2Go. Now in checking on this, what you've just done now is you've opened up all these different tabs that are now going to appear within the back office in terms of web-based descriptions, web-based modifiers, and so on like that. And we'll see some of those as we get into some of the back office stuff. But make sure you have that checked, otherwise you won't be able to do anything like that. Allow internet orders. Now, if this is basically the on-off switch for the whole web-based thing. So you can go in and program the whole thing, and only when you're ready to get it started and make it operational for people to get on and do it, then you select on this and they can go about ordering meals on it. If this is unchecked, they will be able, if they have the right URL, they will be able to get into the Web2Go system and they can view the menu and all the items, but they just won't be able to place an order. Coming down below that, you have the root directory for all of the Web2Go software and so on, where it's going to go on the system. Don't worry about setting up any of this. As I said, it'll be set up for you automatically as part of the installation process and service. All right, coming over to the next tab here, we have defaults, default information in terms of a default internet employee, for example. All right, this is the web-based employee working on the web-based system for your web-based order. And so this will be populated with a web-based employee on there, just a generic record that would be created within PixelPoint of, it's like a kiosk employee, only it's a Web2Go employee. And down below that, a default message that may be required to start up for this. A default seating position, it will default to seating position 1. Now, we use seats 1, 2, 3 when you have multiple people who are ordering on the same check. Okay, so for example, you're in the office, I'm in the office, Leslie's in the office, and we each sign into the system, and we each place our order, but we want to eat together. And so what you can do is you can do a function called buddy ordering, which we'll take a look at later on, in which case then the system uses the seating position capability to actually differentiate one order from the next, but still have them all go across within the same order. Also, we have use minimum charge and use a delivery charge as well. So it's set, but then within here you can actually apply these minimum charge. You can do a delivery order with a minimum of $10 order or something like that. A delivery charge on there, then a delivery surcharge, for example. So if I have to send a driver out to you, it'll be maybe a 10% delivery surcharge or something like that. And those are all within product setup. All right, the next one over is pictures. Now, depending on the bandwidth and resolution, that will determine what resolution you can work with here. The more higher the quality, the longer it will take for it to actually push across all this information. One thing that is important within PixelPoint, though, when it comes to web-based ordering, use pictures. Pictures are really important when it comes to a web-based menu. People are much more likely to use the system and order from it if they can actually see a picture of the item. It doesn't matter if this is what it's actually going to look like, but as long as they see something that is presentable and close to what they're going to get, then they are much more likely to use it. At least they'll have some concept of what it is they're ordering. If you've ever taken a look in terms of web-based menus, and you've seen some that are just nothing but text, and then those that actually offer pictures with it as well, even within your own gut, you'll feel, okay, I feel much better ordering this item that I have a picture associated with, as opposed to something that's just a text description as well. Location. So within here, the location, this is what shows up within the information that will show up on the check, for example, and the web-based check, and also within the website as well. And so on here you have information. With virtually anything within here, you'll see it says plain text, as I've got here, or you can use HTML tags as well for formatting. So if you are familiar with HTML coding, then by all means you can use any of that with any of this programming. Web colors. Now within here, the Web2Go system can appear in a variety of different color schemes. And within this, you can actually dictate in terms of what particular color scheme you want to work with. If you're familiar with the hex values, you can set it up within there, or you can just double-click on any one of these bars. You're presented with the color palette, but also with the whole RGB grid as well. RGB, red, green, blue. So if for example, if you're trying to pair this up with a website that's already been created, then if you're familiar with website design and so on, you can actually go into the main screen, for example, and take a look at the color of their banner. And if it's a certain shade of green, then just take a look at the RGB code for that, and it'll give you the numbers within there. You just match them up within here. And basically what you can do is you can match up exactly the color scheme of the Web2Go system with that of the rest of their website. So the whole thing just kind of flows together, and you can't really tell where one ends off and the other begins. Hours. Now the hours that it's referring to within here are hours of operation that you will accept web-based orders. For example, it doesn't matter really in terms of what your hours of operation are for the establishment. The question is, will you accept a pizza order at 4 o'clock in the morning? Now if you close at midnight, for example, then no, you wouldn't. So that being said, what you can do is within here, you can put in the hours of Web2Go operation, all right, when people can place orders. And that's what you would set within here on a day-to-day basis. Web bricks, basically bricks being the foundation of this whole thing. What's all the miscellaneous things that need to be set up within here? So there's a wide selection of all of these different things that you can determine the values for pertaining to the operation and display of the system, all within web bricks. The welcome message, when you first sign into the system, what kind of message do you want to come up on the screen? What's the first thing you want them to see when they get into the web-based ordering thing? Now, it is password protected, so there is a login screen to begin with. And then once they get beyond that, boom, here's what you want to present. And so this is what will be showing up within here. Again, HTML coding is available as well. Bottom text. All right, the bottom text is what will show up at the bottom of the product listing screen. Okay, so for example, if I choose salads, then I have a list of all the different salads and the descriptions and the pictures of them and so on like that. Now, if you scroll right down to the bottom, is there some kind of a message that you want to make available for it? So this is something along this line, for example, that can show up within there. Location lists. Now, I have my web-based system on the system. Of course, it's available to be viewed worldwide, but I am not going to deliver a pizza in China. So if that is the case, I can identify within here in terms of a country, a state, and a city. And I can put in entire lists of all these things as well in terms of which particular geographic locations I will work with. And if the address of the individual does not correspond with any of the fields that's within here, then that record will not be allowed to have a delivery or pickup order placed with it. So when you are setting up your members, because this does look to the member database table for anyone who wants to place a web-based order, then it will look to the country, make sure the country is in there properly, the state, make sure that's in there properly, and the city as well. Coupons. If there is any web-based coupons or you have a web-based member group that is set up for this, then you can actually have coupons applied to it as well. So this is really good for basically having, when you're using your member groups, to have one created specifically for web-based members if they use this on such a regular basis. And then within there, it will honor any coupons that's available within that member group. Web receipt. So after I placed my order and I've made my payment and I'm ready to exit out, the system will come up with a receipt. And on this, you want to make sure that you've got a header and footer on it, just like any other conventional receipt. Processing delay. Now, let's say, for example, that you want to place an order for lunch. Now, the restaurant right now is really, really busy. And by default, I have, for example, for my delivery orders, you can get your delivery order, delivered in about 40 minutes. Okay, so you place your order, we'll cook it, and we'll give it to a delivery guy, and you should have it in your hands in about 40 minutes. And as far as a pickup time for it, you can place your order, we'll have it ready for pickup in about 20 minutes, for example. Now, on a really busy day, what you can do is actually flip over on the front end to an extended period of time. So if it's really busy, then I can't guarantee 40 minutes for a delivery, and I can't guarantee 20 minutes for a pickup. So what you can do is put in an extended time on this, all right, in which case then, when they flip on over to it, then you can say instead of 40 minutes, it'll be 60 minutes, and instead of 20 minutes, it'll be 30 minutes, or 40 minutes for a pickup, that kind of thing. And you can toggle back and forth between the non-busy time and the really busy time. Also within there as well, it has the capability within the front end that you can actually turn off web-based orders as well. So if the place is so busy you just can't take web-based orders right now, they'll have to call it in or come in themselves. Then what you can do is just turn it off from the front end, and that will still allow them to be able to view the menu and so on, but they will not be able to place web-based orders. And then when the place is not so busy and you're able to take those again, you can turn it right back on within the front end. And payment function or payment options as well. And so within here, you identify what are the forms of payment that you want to accept for web-based orders. And by most accounts, it's credit cards, maybe on account as well. On account is for members who have maybe a house credit, for example, or a gift card, in which case then they would be required to put in their member number. To do that, sorry. And if by credit cards, they can give you the credit card number online. It does work with SSL, Secured Socket Layer Protection, so it is all protected and encrypted and so on. PixelPoint is PCI compliant as well. So in terms of their the security of their credit card transaction, it's quite secure on there. So that gives you an idea in terms of the setup for that. Now with that turned on, because I turned on that setting, what are some of the things that show up within here? I'm just going to give you a quick example because this is one that you would need to set up your, as part of your task when setting up a Web2Go system. Is you go into Product Setup, and then within Product Setup we come over to Advanced and down to Make Info. Now within Make Info, you'll see we have here short web description, long web description. So on this, here, I'm just going to jump on down here. I'll come down to Bud Light. Okay, so within Bud Light, if I was to order a Bud Light on the internet, then first of all I could load in a picture of a Bud Light in here. And I do recommend anything you want available on the Web2Go system, make sure that you put in images for that. Then the short web description is 1 can of Bud Light. It is cold. And then within the long description, then you can have a lot more detailed information. For example, it has 100 calories and is good. You know, whatever it happens to be. You would put in a more detailed description. Now, what would happen is that when you first see the picture of the Bud Light and the description of Bud Light showing up on there, you will have the short web description showing up on there as well. I'll be showing you that momentarily. But if you were to select on that item to get more detailed information, then you would be presented with the long web description. So when it comes to like you know, the plate of veal parmesan, for example, then it would say, you know, veal, breaded veal cutlet with Parmesan cheese on top. And then if you select on long web description, you would have a lot more detailed information on that particular menu item as well. So that's what these two functions serve as within here, is they allow you to do that. You may also have some other description, some other information showing up. I think I was trying to remember where I would see them. All right, there is other information anyway that will show up within the system in terms of different different modifiers, for example, that would show up within this. So if I was to select on this item, then it would come up. Actually, maybe I got this within here. Web2Go custom. Okay, there it is there. So Web2Go custom, this is one example of what would show up within your menu items as well, where I have different modify screens and force question that may show up on a per menu item basis. So if I'm, for example, going back to I didn't want to do that. So just scrolling down here, if I coming to Miller Lite. Okay, so if I did offer Miller Lite, I sell it within my restaurant, and I want to sell it over the internet as well. Then within here, I may have different modifiers that I want to apply if it is ordered over the internet, and different force questions that may come up if it's ordered over the internet. And these will be exclusive to web-based ordering, okay, just by selecting on Web Custom. All right. Now, when you are doing this, how do you go about setting up and preparing for PixelPoint to set this up for you? All right, so the first thing you want to do is go into all the products and make sure that you've got the web. If there is web custom, typically there wouldn't be, but there may be on some items. But the most common thing would be the make info. Any of the items that you want to offer on the internet, make sure that you've got an image and a description for those. Next, after doing that, go into menu setup. And actually multi-menu setup. Within here, you would have a new menu that you would create called a web menu or something like this. Okay, so you can create just click on the plus sign. You can define in terms of the order template you want to use. And then having done that, then go into menu setup, choose on multi-menu, and you choose whatever the web menu is that you're going to work with. And then from there, you define your order pages and your menu items that will show up within each one of those. So you click and drag over and make sure that each and every one of them has an image and a description as well. The programmer who is doing the programming for you, they will be going in and looking for that menu, that web-based menu. And so make sure you've got that set up for them. And then from there, it doesn't really matter in terms of the button color schemes and so on. Don't worry about any of those. All you need to do is just get the guts in there, which is the order pages. And so, hang on. Sorry about that. Getting dried up. Just make sure that you've got the order pages and the menu items that are set up within there. And then from there, that will all be translated across to the Web2Go system. Now, let's take a look at what it looks like. Okay, so here I am in the internet, and I'm going to go to the PixelPoint POS website. Okay, so it's the website for PixelPoint is www.pixelpointpos.com. Okay, it's just, you might want to write that down. Now within here, this will give you information on all the different products and so on like that. What you want to do is go down to where it says Our Solutions. And salespeople, this is a great little area. If you're ever selling web-based ordering and so on, this is where you want to go to present this stuff. And in here, we have all the different solutions pertaining to the PixelPoint system. And on here, we have one that says Online Ordering Solutions. So in here, you have a description of all the web-to-go and how it's designed and so on. Click here for an online demo. And then here we're presented with this screen. So this is a web-to-go system that we're going to take a look at right now. And this is the demo one that's created within the system. So the first thing we have is a login to get into it. All right, so on this we have an email address and a password. Now the email address is the email address that shows up within the member database table. Okay, so make sure that you have something in there for that. Password, there is a web-based password that's also available within there, and you as the systems administrator can set that up. It will default to the member swipe number that's applied within there. So if they have a passcode or a swipe card or anything like that, it will default to that. And if you need to, you can always put in any kind of manual entry number within that field. Next thing here is pickup service type. And so within here we have the sale types that are available for Web2Go. And again, you can add in additional ones as well through sale type setup. And you can choose as far as the desired way of having it either delivered or picked up or whatever the case. I forgot my password. Make sure that you have email server capabilities so that if the person has forgotten what it is, then what it will do is it will look to the member database record, correspond that with the email address that you just typed within here, and then provide you with that web password, but only to that email address that shows up within the member record there. And then log in. Now, I'll log in just a moment, but I want to take a look at some of these other things down below. The first one here is create a new account. Now, create a new account basically will bring up a profile screen. You put in your information, boom, it'll create one for you. What it's actually doing is creating a member record on the PixelPoint system with the basic information that you require. Coming down below that, I am an existing delivery customer, but I do not have an internet account with the establishment yet. So basically, you're saying, you know what, I'm a member with the restaurant. I already have a member record, but I haven't done it with the Web2Go yet. So what it will do is it will look to that email address again, bring up that member record, and from there allow them to actually put in their own password for it. View our menu. This will actually allow you to take a look at all of the menu screens, just not place an order. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. All right, so looks like Jose Chavez has been playing around with this, all right, and has made some changes. That's the downside of having a demo thing on here. But anyway, excuse that for a moment here. It would be welcome to whoever you happen to be online, and I guess he just changed his profile, or changed her profile for that. Okay, now what do we have within here? First of all, we got the PixelPoint logo across the top. As I said, the color scheme on this is completely customizable, as is the banner as well. So the banner would not be PixelPoint always if you don't want. You can have that of the establishment in there with their design and color scheme and logos and so on like that. Coming down below that, we have this taskbar here with all of the basic functions that you can do within the system as well. Also, it shows in terms of who you are. There's your email address, your username, and how many points you have accumulated. Remember doing, if we're offering client retention programs and so on, what your point balance is on that. Down the left-hand side, we have menu, and here's all of our different ordering pages. Okay, so this is the order page grid that we're looking at: breakfast, salads, soups, and so on like that. And then this main screen, this is the welcome screen, the first thing that shows up. Now, in here, we showed you just by default within this demo, you know, just the quick steps in terms of placing an order. But you can change this around to anything you want. You know, the color logo with maybe a map of their location or whatever it happens to be. Over on the right-hand side is the totals information, your order screen. And so as you place order, you know, you add in things to your order, then they will show up within here along with the total as well. Coming over to the left-hand side then on menu, I'm going to select on breakfast. So in breakfast, I'm now presented with the menu of all the breakfasts. And so here's the product grid basically that's showing up within here. As you can see, you can understand why it's important to have images in here as well, because images sell. Images make people want to use this system. There's no use investing into a web-to-go system and not putting graphic images in, because then you will have limited success. You want the thing to be successful and get some ROI on that. So make sure that they put images in there. This is the short web description, this item right here. Now in the demo, it's kind of basic, okay? So it just kind of matches up with the name of the item. But if, for example, I did want the scrambled eggs with bacon, I can actually select on this item, and from here I would come up with the detailed description for this, okay? Again, within the demo, they didn't do that. They just came up with they just matched up the description. But in this, you would have a much longer web description with calories and contents and whatever it happens to be, how it's cooked and so on like that. If I do want to order this particular item, now I don't have to select it here. I could have done it on the previous page, but I'll do it right from here. $2.69, and in here you can change the quantity from 1 to whatever, and then I'll just say add. So add this to my meal. So in this, I am now presented with a forced question, okay? So what type of bread do I want? Do I want it with a pita or a bagel? Okay, so in here I'll say bagel, for example, and choose next. Now, depending on the nature of the item, you can have multiple forced questions. Do you want a medium coffee or decaf? So I'll choose that. And there we go. So now I have these scrambled eggs with bacon, bagel, with medium decaf. Okay, so those are the modifiers for it. Now take a look down below. We have favorite and modify as well. Favorite. Add to favorites, okay? One of the things you can do is actually, if this is something I order on a regular basis, just save it as a favorite, and actually I can order from my favorites as well. I'll take a look at that later. Also modify. If there's a miscellaneous modification that I want to make to this, aside from just the regular thing, then the system is going to look to things like your food modifier button, or in this case you would want one set up for web-based modifiers as well. And so you select on this, and now I'm presented with things such as food extra, food hold, food modify, for example. Or as I had said, you can set up one specifically for web-based. And in this, then if there is anything extra that needs to be done, so I want, for example, extra onion, hold the mayo, and no butter, then you can do things like that. And there's all miscellaneous modifiers I've added to that scrambled eggs with bacon as well. And if I want something else, let's say, for example, come down to beverages. So here's all my beverages, and on here I want to have a large Coke. So I'll select on Add. There's no further modifications required, and there it is there. Now take a look here. I've got Favorite, Modify, and also Remove as well. The same would be applied up here as well. Remove is available. And so if I change my mind, I want to take that off, then I can do that. Here are the applicable taxes. There's the final total. Okay. Now, before we go any further with that, let's just take a look at some of the things we've got over across the top here. So first of all, we've got logout, self-explanatory. Abandon what I'm doing, log me out of the system, take me back to the login screen. Back to menu. So wherever I happen to be in the system at the time, I can select on back to menu, and it will default me back to wherever the previous menu was that I was in. In this case, I'm still sitting on the main one, but if there was a sub-menu within here, if I'm getting really deep into stuff like this, then you can just click on back to menu, and it'll pop you back to the main menu. From there, you can continue on with other items. Your personal area. If I select on this, then this is where we have all of the member information showing up within here. All right. In this, I can change the password, for example, and I can do that on my own. Also, change the email and log in as well, and edit the profile, being all this information. I can take off Jose, for example, and put something else. But this allows you to change all that information. All right. This is also regarded as the delivery address as well, so kind of bear that in mind, that when a delivery is done, this is what it's going to assume is where you want it delivered to as well. All right. The next thing we have is buddy place. Now, buddy ordering. First of all, we have an explanation here in terms of what buddy ordering is, but I kind of said it earlier on. You, me, and Leslie all work in the same office. We want to have lunch together, so we all place an order on the system. Now, here's how we go about doing it. First of all, we have our buddy list manager. So each one of us would go in here, and we would put in terms of who are the people within our buddy list. Okay, so I would have Leslie's email address in there. I would have your email address as well, because the system's going to use that for matching this up. And so you'll see we've got all of the employees showing up within here, and these are the people who are going to be in my buddy list. The next thing we've got is pick buddy orders. So going into this now, if I'm, for example, going to be the guy who's going to place the order, then on here I can go in and I'll say, okay, so I've got Leslie in here, and I've got you in here, and I've got me in here. And as far as any of us who are online, then this what this column will show is that who is currently online and placing their order right now. And when you place your order, then I will see the dollar total showing up within here. And if there's any detailed information pertaining to that order, that will show up in there as well in terms of what it is you've ordered and so on. Not in full detail, but I think the first line entry. And then on here, once everyone's offline but I've got your stuff all in here, then I can select on Get, and I can click on which ones are going to be included in this order. So it'll be you, me, and Leslie. And then from here, pick the buddy orders. And so what will happen now is using the seating position thing, it will have Leslie's, you may be in seat 1, you in seat 2, me in seat 3. And so we'll have one big order, but it's all separated this way. And as far as the billing goes, the billing will be handled that way as well. Or if you prepaid, then that seat is paid for. And just if it's COD, then whoever has not prepaid, then we'll owe that to the delivery guy at the end. Having picked the orders, then we finally go to buddy checkout, and then from there you pay for yours, and hopefully everyone else paid for theirs, or it'll be COD, and then the whole order will be sent off to the establishment. All right, another thing we got here is order from favorites. So it shows there is where you can actually add to, favorites and so on. So in here, I have a list of all of my favorites on here, and if I want, I can just, okay, the scrambled eggs, the bagel, and medium decaf, then I just want to order right from there, and it will add that in. There's the junior tuna salad. Oh yeah, I want that too. So I select on that. The junior tuna salad is added into this as well. So any of the stuff that you've got within here, you can actually just order directly from here. If you've had enough of it, then you can just select on remove, and it's removed from that list. Okay. Order from history. I almost skipped on that one. Order from history. What this will do is this will look at your previous orders that you've got on the system. And from here, okay, I ordered something about a month ago. It was really good. Can't remember what it was. So I go back about a month or so, and I click on here, and this presents me with what that order was. And take a look. I can actually order from my past orders as well. And so on there was the grilled eggs and cheese. That was the item I wanted. So I select on that, and it's also added into my check as well. Okay, so having done all that, oh, and there's online help as well. Okay, and that gives you all information in terms of how to go about doing web-to-go stuff. And then from this, then I'm going to select on checkout. Now, obviously, web-to-go does require credit auth to be loaded on the system as well. So the establishment will require credit authorization. Having said that, then you can come down to this, and we've got delivery information here for you, as well as like your how to get there as well for the delivery driver. Your order is set for delivery. I can actually change this right on the fly, maybe to pick up, for example. And also for immediate processing. Now, immediate processing means send it off, make it, and deliver it to me. I can actually select on this. I can say I want it as a future order. So you may want to have future ordering capabilities set up within this as well. If they want it maybe for pickup at Friday at 6 o'clock or deliver it Friday at 6 o'clock or something like that, then you can determine that within here as well. Oh, I'm just going to get back to where I was. There we go. And then from this, next step is payment. Okay, so within here now, you can put in credit card information and so on if you want to be able to do that. If you want them to be able to not prepay, then you can have something like put on member account or whatever it happens to be. And the system will allow for that. Current processing time is 40 minutes. You can actually change that as well. The system will change from that if you do extend that within the front end of the POS. So it may change from 40 minutes to 60 minutes, for example. In here, we've just got a bogus credit card that's set up on the system to emulate this. So I'll just process the payment for this right now. So what it's doing right now, it's actually going in, hopefully going into the system. There we go. Your payment has been successfully processed. Okay, the transaction date and time and so on like this. Now this will also send off an email to you, which is a confirmation of your order. Okay, so use that email address. Make sure you got email server capability. It will send off a confirmation of this order as well. And here's the details of your order. And thank you, come again. And back to the home page. And that's how Web2Go works. Okay, so that gives you an idea in terms of what you can do with that. And the timing is just perfect. We're at 5 minutes to 3. So Leslie, I'm going to open up for some questions now. Oh, one more thing before I finish off with this. If you are doing a Web2Go system and it's a large establishment that may offer things like catering as well, then actually you can have a catering menu set up within this as well. You just have to stipulate that when you're ordering the Web2Go system, that I've got 2 menus, one for web-based ordering conventionally and one for maybe a catering menu, which may be a whole separate thing. And based on the sale type that you select here, that will determine what Web2Go menu shows up on the screen. Okay, sorry about that. Leslie, just if you got any questions, then this is a good time to take them.
Yes, if you've got a question, please type it into the question panel, and I'll go ahead and read the questions off as they come into the queue. Scott, I'm not showing any questions as of yet.
Okay, so either everyone gets it or no one gets it. I certainly hope everyone gets it. Okay, you know, if you have any questions, then this is your opportunity to do it. But if you don't, then we're going to be moving on to tomorrow's topic then. Last call. Okay. All right, so I guess that's it for today. So today we've covered off Dataminer, Report Viewer, in 2 flavors, being the external and the internal one, and also Web2Go as well. So we're getting near the end of it. We've got 2 more sessions left, and then we're done with this training. So within this next session, we're going to cover off any miscellaneous things that's left within the back office. And then in the final session, we're going to go into the utilities, take a look at the various technical utilities that are available within the system, and also take a brief little look at some recommendations pertaining to how you should design screens, menu screens as well. Because sometimes I find quite often within my experience is that a lot of people really don't know how to go about properly designing a menu order screen. And so we'll just kind of take a quick look at the geography of that, and I'll offer you some of my expertise on that as well. Okay, so thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention, and I'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good one. Bye-bye.